is the WrestleBread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee here, and this is episode 50 of the WrestleBread Podcast. So I hope everyone is safe with everything that's going on with the coronavirus. I believe we are getting close to the $100,000 mark in America for how many people have the coronavirus. I believe in Philadelphia, we are close to 2,000 or 3,000. I'm not sure. It's been a pretty long week for me. Last time I spoke to you guys, my location got shut down, and now I am traveling between two different areas in Philadelphia. So I have to travel, and I don't drive. Don't judge me. And I have to get on the public transportation. And what they recently did this week is, because the bus drivers are complaining about people getting in their face whenever they get on board, now you no longer have to pay to get on the bus. You have to go get on the bus at the back of the bus. And what's happening is people are hearing, oh, you can ride a bus for free now. So now everybody and their mama is out and about, especially now this week that the weather is starting to warm up. So no one isn't paying attention to what's going on or adhering to the warnings and the rules of staying home unless you really, really need to get out. But people are taking this like it's a vacation. Feeling bad for all those people who are out of work because in Pennsylvania, they extended the social distancing to April 30th. And I believe non-essential businesses are closed until then too. So a lot of people are out of work and will still be out of work. And it's getting worse before it's going to get better. So thank you to everyone who are on the front line, especially the healthcare workers, first responders, and shout out to all the essential workers who have to go out there every single day. I spoke to someone, I have a loan somewhere, and they called me to see if I needed any hardship or anything. And I mentioned I'm an essential worker, so I'm still working. And she's like, oh, I know you're happy. And I truthfully sat there and was like, am I happy? Because yes, I do have a job. I'm very thankful for a job. I just wish I was able to work from home or be able to get paid while being home during all this. While I'm very glad I have a job and everything, the tough thing is that I have to go out each and every day amongst all this. And it's not like I'm working in a cubicle or something like that. I'm dealing with the public. I'm dealing with people trying to, talk to me within 6 feet as if they are, immune to all this. I had a person told me to my face that they don't have the corona. And then someone else was like, oh, we just came from the dentist. We got our temperature taken and we don't have a fever. And it's like, you can still have it without having any symptoms. So I'm like really hoping that this is over very soon, because not only for us to get back to our normal lives, but so we don't have to worry about, do I have it? Am I going to catch it? Am I going to pass it on to anyone? And while, a lot of the young people, especially those spring breakers who felt as though, oh, if I get it, I get it. You're going to pass it on to someone else, and they may not be so lucky or may not be able to handle the virus as well as you. So that's my coronavirus rant of the day. So it is that time of the year. It is Wrestlemania week. I didn't even realize it from watching that Raw this past week. While it was somewhat of a good Raw, I still hate the fact that they sit there and do a full replay of the whole entire match. I even forgot what match it was this week. I think it was the match. It was the main event of WrestleMania with Becky Lynch versus Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. But it's just, I don't know. It's just a very sad time because we can't experience what we would like to experience due to the fact that, we can't all be near each other. And so a lot of things that is happening at WrestleMania, actually things that happen this time of the year will not happen to its fullest extent. I always like WrestleMania. Like I said, WrestleMania normally falls near my birthday. My birthday is actually next Thursday, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going out anywhere, of course. I'm going to be staying home, but I have no idea, like, if I'm going to try to do, like, something a little special, whereas to get a nice bottle of alcohol from somewhere, or I have, cake mix, do something like that, or I don't know, sit on my porch with a birthday hat on. Who knows? But either way, it is a sad time. WrestleMania isn't really as hyped up as it normally would be. I don't really see on social media people are very excited about it because there's no crowd. It's taking place in Performance Center, so there's not going to be a lot of pyro and, how big and like a big of a celebration at WrestleMania normally is. So what I've been doing is I've been going through the past WrestleManias, and I will go through more about this year's WrestleMania in the next episode, where I go through more of the WrestleManias and I give my predictions. So for this episode, I'll be going through WrestleMania 21 through 30. And then in episode 51, I will be going through WrestleMania 31 through 35, and then ending with my predictions and things that are happening with this year's WrestleMania. For example, how it's going to be 2 nights, which I think is crazy. A lot of changes that are coming to the events, with Roman Reigns pulling out of the title match and little other changes that's going on with some matches as well. So going into with WrestleMania 21, this took place in LA back in 2005. And this was one of my favorite WrestleManias when it comes to the vignettes or the promotional videos for this WrestleMania. This WrestleMania, because it took place in LA, it was called WrestleMania Goes Hollywood. And there was a lot of promotional, like, parody movie trailers that WWE wrestlers did. First there was Forrest Gump with Eugene, Braveheart with Triple H, Basic Instinct with Stacy Keibler, along with Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, and Christian. Pulp Fiction with Eddie Guerrero and Booker T, which was pretty good. I have 3 favorites of these. The first one is A Few Good Men with John Cena and JBL, which was John Cena with the acting. My goodness. Dirty Harry with The Undertaker, and Gladiator with Stone Cold Steve Austin. They also did When Holly Met Sally with Kurt Angle and Christy Hemme. And then there was a Taxi Driver, which featured a lot of people reenacting Robert De Niro's You Talking to Me line. So going through some of the matches, we had Lillian Garcia singing America the Beautiful. We had the match between Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, which was a submission match. Kurt Angle won that match. It was a pretty good match. We had Trish Stratus versus Christy Hemme. We had Undertaker versus Randy Orton. There was a Money in the Bank ladder match where Edge won. And then the biggest thing is that we had a sumo match featuring The Big Show. I think the sumo wrestler name is Akibono. Now this was about, I can't really say cringy, but cringy. Because you saw Big Show in the sumo attire, which is basically a thong going up your ass. So you saw cheeks. And I don't think you really wanted to see those type of cheeks. But unfortunately, now we had, they played it up that, Big Show had somewhat of a chance, but he really didn't. Of course, he lost this match. Now, what I would like to call these WrestleManias between 21 and 30 is the John Cena years. Pretty much, I believe in every single WrestleMania except for 30 was John Cena, facing someone for a title, or he was in a main event. So for this WrestleMania, he was going against, JBL for WWE Championship, which John Cena won. And I believe this was his first WWE Championship as well. This also featured Batista going against Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. This was about the time where, Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, and Ric Flair was in the group called Evolution. They broke up, I believe, not too long before this, due to Batista, checking out of the group. But, this led to a matchup between Triple H and Batista. And Batista actually won the match and won the World Heavyweight Championship. I believe that was his first title as well. The celebrity that was at this event was Motorhead, and they were the band that did Triple H's theme. Now, I'm not really counting celebrities that appeared in the crowd, but mainly celebrities that actually either sang or they did some type of, they were involved in some type of confrontation with wrestlers, or they're in the ring promoting something. So going on to WrestleMania 22, this took place in Illinois on April 2nd, 2006. Now, with this one, this was called Big Time. I don't know why they were naming some of these WrestleManias, but this WrestleMania was called Big Time. Now, this was the WrestleMania after Eddie Guerrero's death. So his last WrestleMania was WrestleMania 21 when he went against Rey Mysterio. So Eddie Guerrero had passed away before this WrestleMania, and they inducted him into the Hall of Fame. So everyone was introduced to Vicky Guerrero at this point. No, she was actually involved in another storyline before Eddie had passed, where it had to do with their son. But after Eddie passed, she kind of, got involved with WWE a lot more, as we all famously know her for the, excuse me that she says in a very high pitched voice that I cannot try to do. Now, this also had the Raw versus SmackDown as well. And this included ECW. And because at this point, now this is where I kind of was like off and on with WrestleMania. So I definitely watched this WrestleMania because Eddie Guerrero had passed away at this time. And I knew that they may have inducted him into the Hall of Fame. But one thing I was pissed off about was the fact that WWE around this time started to acquire ECW. And yeah, Joey Styles called the hardcore match at this point. So going over some of the things with this WrestleMania, we had the Big Show and Kane, who was in a tag team. They actually won the tag team match. And this is the time that Kane had his mask off. He basically only wore tights. So, no burn marks. But this was my favorite theme music of his. I believe it's called Slow Chemical or something like that. I have to definitely get the name, but that was around that time. We had Rob Van Dam, who they used to use a lot. Every time WWE came into Philadelphia, Rob Van Dam would show up in some type of match just to get us to pop and chant ECW. but he won the Money in the Bank match as well. We had JBL going against Chris Benoit. Now, this was the time JBL was being a bastard. He was mocking the fact that Eddie Guerrero died, and so this involved a matchup between JBL and Chris Benoit for the United States Championship. Chris Benoit was the United States Championship around this time, and the Eddie Guerrero death hit him very hard. So JBL won this match, and the fact that he won this match was kind of a slap in the face to everyone who was a fan of his. Then after that, we had Edge with Lita, who was going against Mick Foley in a hardcore match. This match was crazy. You had the spot where you see Mick Foley getting speared through a flaming table, which is one of the craziest spots that I ever seen. That may be a lie, but it's one of the craziest spots that I remember. I'll say that. We also had, now this was around the time where we had the Women's Championship, but we started to slightly go into divas, and a lot of the women who were in WWE ended up in Playboy. So as far as wrestling skills, not a lot of them were taken seriously, and it kind of led into the whole divas era. And I used to blame the women for this, the fact that they only got less than 5-minute matches, or they were taken off the card, or they couldn't really put on like a 5-star wrestling match, until I really thought about it a couple of years later and figured it's mainly WWE to blame, because they really didn't get that time to shine when it comes to putting on a match to make it 5-star and not having to rip off each other's clothes and wrestle in bra and panties. It was a very frustrating time if you wanted like any type of representation for women. We still had Trish Stratus and Lita, but at this time, as I said, Lita was with Edge, and this was after their little sex celebration where they pretty much had sex in the ring. Don't even ask. You should look it up. We had Mickie James going against Trish Stratus for the Women's Championship. This was the storyline of Mickie James being obsessed with Trish Stratus. Mickie James was a fan of Trish Stratus, and this was her first WrestleMania and her first title shot. Mickie James would kiss Stratus, and I don't mean a peck. I mean like, wow, kiss her. But this is the spot that you will not find on WWE Network. You actually have to go to YouTube to find it. Trish Stratus went to go for a finisher, and Mickie James put her hands right on that woo-ha. Trish Stratus backs up, and then you see Mickie James look into the camera and lick her fingers in a V. And yeah, you will never find that on WWE Network, unfortunately, because it never existed, according to WWE. The Undertaker was in a casket match with Mark Henry, and then we had the match between Tori Wilson and Candice Michelle, which was a Playboy pillow fight match. And they didn't even really hit each other with pillows. They were wearing gowns, and then they ripped the gowns off, and it ended up being, they were fighting in bra and panties. And it wasn't a lot of, actual fighting. I mean, there was wrestling moves, but of course it was all, her bending over and, titties flying, and it's just frustrating. That match only lasted 3 minutes and 54 seconds. You also had Rey Mysterio going against Randy Orton and Kurt Angle in a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Rey Mysterio, I believe this was the year that he won the Royal Rumble, if I'm not mistaken. And he wasn't really guaranteed, he got screwed out somewhere, and he couldn't enter into the Royal Rumble matchup. he won the Royal Rumble match. And then Randy Orton challenged Rey Mysterio for a shot at the title. And then Rey Mysterio lost, and then they decided to make it a triple threat match. This, of course, was all for Eddie. This whole WrestleMania was all about Eddie Guerrero, of course, with Chris Benoit trying to, fight for him, and with Rey Mysterio winning the championship. So Rey Mysterio won the World Heavyweight Championship, and of course, as he was going back to celebrate, Vicky Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero was on the stage celebrating with him. This main event was John Cena going against Triple H for the WWE Championship. Told you, there he is, John Cena. This actually was one of his theme entrances where he was using like the 1930s kind of gangster theme. And you'll see like 4 to 8 people roll up in one of the old school cars, of course, and you'll see a slightly familiar face in a person named CM Punk, who will later become CM Punk, I should say, who was an extra in John Cena's entrance. Of course, John Cena wins this match to retain his WWE Championship. So going on to WrestleMania 23, for some reason, they called it All Grown Up. Now, I'm pretty sure this is where I kind of checked out. I have my story incorrect. I could have sworn I stopped watching wrestling for a number of years, but it was actually for a short period of time. And it was because of the whole ECW thing that they were doing. So I don't think I really watched this WrestleMania that closely. Because this WrestleMania featured 6 commentators. Because we had 3 brands. We had SmackDown, which had Michael Cole and JBL. We had Raw, which had Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross. And then we had ECW that had Joey Styles and Taz. And so all 6 of them were commentating during the Money in the Bank ladder match because all 3 brands were being featured. And that was a bit of a pain in the ass. I mean, they did it a lot smoother than a 3-person commentating team on Raw, but it was still kind of like everyone had one-liners. For the celebrities, for WrestleMania 22, we had POD and we had Michelle Williams, who sang America the Beautiful. For WrestleMania 23, we had Aretha Franklin. And then we had the future president, Donald Trump, who was in not really a match, but it was a hair versus hair Battle of the Billionaires match with Stone Cold Steve Austin as a special guest referee. It was Bobby Lashley versus Umaga. So the matches here, we had Chris Benoit going against MVP, the Great Khali going against Kane. We had The Undertaker going against Batista. The ECW originals, Rob Van Dam, Sabu, The Sandman, and Tommy Dreamer going against the New Breed, which was Elijah Burke, Kevin Thorne, Marcus Corvan, and Matt Striker. So I don't think I was really watching it because I had no idea. When I was watching this back, I had no idea who the New Breed was. So we had Melina going against Ashley for a lumberjill match, which lasted all of 3 minutes and 40 seconds. But in main event, John Cena going against Shawn Michaels for the WWE Championship. And John Cena defeated Shawn Michaels by submission. You heard me right. Shawn Michaels tapped out to John Cena, and John Cena retained his championship once again. Now, of course, he lost and regained the title between these WrestleManias, but going WrestleMania to WrestleMania, he entered as champion and he retained as champion. So going into WrestleMania 24, there wasn't really a name for this. they added a little tagline, I think, but this WrestleMania, we had John Legend, who sang America the Beautiful. We had Kim Kardashian, Snoop Dogg, Raven-Symoné, and this WrestleMania featured the match between Floyd Money Mayweather and The Big Show. And I have respect for Floyd Mayweather because I'm not really that big of a fan. You can call me a hater or whatever, but whatever. But I applaud Floyd Mayweather for actually taking some bumps from Big Show. But with this WrestleMania, it was a no disqualification match. Floyd Mayweather had boxing gloves, like this was a boxing match. But this was basically around the time that Big Show had the knockout punch. Basically, the show to kind of build repertoire of his, knockout skills. This was the one WrestleMania that John Cena was not in the main event, and John Cena did not have a title, and John Cena did not leave with a title. He went against Randy Orton and Triple H in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. And as you see around these WrestleManias, it was nothing but Randy Orton, John Cena, and Triple H. Triple H versus Randy Orton versus John Cena versus Triple H. As we get closer to WrestleMania 30, it really got tiring. We had CM Punk, who won the Money in the Bank ladder match at this time. He was somewhat of an underdog. He was popular. This one he took out Chris Jericho, who almost went for the briefcase and won the Money in the Bank match himself. This was the career-threatening match of Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair, where you see him say, I love you, I'm sorry, and he super kicked him in the face. We also had this Playboy Bunny Mania Lumberjill match, which lasted 5 minutes. And this was Beth Phoenix and Melina going against Ashley and Maria. The lights actually went out during this match. But the master of ceremonies for this event was Snoop Dogg, who came out in this weird looking golf cart thing. And he had the Lumberjills following behind him. After the match, Beth Phoenix and Melina won, but Santino Marella was getting involved. Jerry the King Lawler then got up, punched Santino Marella in the face, but Beth Phoenix and Melina still won the match. Maria was getting up and Snoop Dogg kind of checked on her to make sure she was okay. And then he just planted a kiss on her randomly. So, I think around this time, Maria and Santino Marella used to be a thing, because then you see Santino Marella reacting to it. Like I said, I really wasn't watching all of Raw and SmackDowns around this time, so I didn't know too many of the storylines going in. Also, this WrestleMania, John Cena was also having a special entrance. So for this one, it was actually a marching band who played his song for him as he was coming out. The main event for this WrestleMania was The Undertaker going against Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship. Undertaker had used the Hell's Gate, it looks like a weird triangle hold where the person's head is stuck between the Undertaker's calves. It's very hard to explain it, but Edge had tapped out, if I'm not mistaken, to this move, and that's when the Undertaker won the title. The match between Floyd Mayweather and the Big Show. Big Show, believe he body slammed him, he stepped on him, and this match lasted about 11 minutes, and it was mainly the Big Show giving a lot of offense, which I give respect to Floyd Mayweather for taking that punishment. And then, of course, Big Show got on his knees to taunt Floyd Mayweather, and this Floyd Mayweather gave him a right and knocked him out. So Floyd Mayweather won the title. He didn't win the title, but he won the match. So going into WrestleMania 25, I haven't been saying where these other WrestleManias were at, but this one, WrestleMania 25, took place in Houston, Texas. And this WrestleMania features what a lot of people say is one of the best WrestleMania matches ever in history, which was the match between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. This match also featured celebrities of Mickey Rourke, Kid Rock, and Nicole Scherzinger, who sung America the Beautiful. CM Punk once again won the Money in the Bank ladder match. There was a Miss WrestleMania Battle Royale with Mae Young as the special guest timekeeper. This lasted 7 minutes. This Battle Royale was so short that they started it while I think it was Justin Roberts at the time, was giving the rules of how the rules of the Battle Royal. But some of the women that was in this Battle Royal, was Sunny, who had came back. We had Kelly, Leah, Maurice, Melina, Michelle McCool, Mickey James. We had Molly Holly in here, Natalia. This Battle Royal started off with Kid Rock doing a song, and during a part of his song, that's when the Divas came out, and each one of them were standing next to him and dancing, and you kind of see Natalia kind of do a dance, but the camera had a bit of a weird angle. So you notice that there is a diva who is standing around and not doing anything, but towards the end, she eliminated 2 people and then ended up eliminating Beth Phoenix, and I forgot who Beth Phoenix was fighting against at that time. And the person who won was Santina Marella, who's allegedly Santina Marella's twin sister, she said. So, yeah. This WrestleMania had a triple threat match of John Cena going against The Big Show and Edge. And this was around the time that we had Edge involved in a storyline with Vicky Guerrero. John Cena won this match, of course, to win the World Heavyweight Championship. We also had Rey Mysterio going against JBL for the Intercontinental Championship. This was a very short match. It lasted only 20 seconds, and Rey Mysterio won. This was also an Extreme Rules match on this card for Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy, which was pretty good, of course. I mean, it's the Hardy Boys. What do you expect? We also had Chris Jericho going against the Legends in a handicap elimination match. It was Jimmy Snuka, Ricky Steamboat, and Rowdy Piper, who was accompanied by Ric Flair. And then Chris Jericho defeated each of them one by one. I believe Rowdy was first, and then Jimmy Snuka, and then Ricky Steamboat was last. And then Ric Flair gets into the ring, and I believe Chris Jericho did the Lion Tamer, I believe. Or Code Breaker, I'm sorry, the Code Breaker. So this main event for this match was Triple H going against Randy Orton for WWE Championship. I told you Triple H versus Randy Orton versus Cena versus Triple H. It gets tiring after a while. But yeah, this WrestleMania featured The Undertaker going against Shawn Michaels, which is a spectacular match. I mean, Shawn Michaels is Mr. WrestleMania. Undertaker had his streak. The Undertaker ended up winning this match, and Shawn Michaels will then kind of be obsessed with the fact that he felt as though he can defeat The Undertaker. So this leads to a challenge at WrestleMania 26 of the streak versus career match. If Shawn Michaels does not defeat The Undertaker, he will retire from wrestling. And then if Shawn Michaels wins, that'll be the end of the streak. So for this WrestleMania, we had Freddie Prinze Jr. and Fantasia, who sang America the Beautiful. Now, this WrestleMania featured my favorite John Cena entrance. It was the military, let me see, U.S. Air Force Honor Guard drill team, which was a kick-ass performance. You should check it out if you've never seen it before. That's one of my favorite John Cena entrances ever. We had, of course, the main event of The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, because that was the biggest storyline in here. We had John Cena going against Batista for WWE Championship. John Cena did not enter this match as champion, but he definitely walked out as champion. We also had Bret Hart going against Vince McMahon. Bret Hart returning to WWE after, about 10 years, I think, at that point, after he was screwed in Montreal. Bret Hart, I believe this is when Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels shook hands and forgave each other. And then there was this big thing between Bret Hart and Mr. McMahon. And Mr. McMahon and Bret Hart had a no holds barred lumberjack match. Bret Hart wins that match as well. We had Rey Mysterio going against CM Punk, and this was the time where CM Punk had his Straight Edge Society, which featured Luke Gallows and Serena. And she was the chick, I don't think she even wrestled, but she shaved her head to show her the fact that she's willing to follow him. And if you are one of those, if you are an AEW fan, you realize that little incident kind of was replicated in AEW with the, I think it was the Nightmare Collective that Brandy and, Awesome Kong had with the girl who shaved her head for them. I think, not really shaved her head, but she didn't shave her head. I think she cut off hair for her. We also had Chris Jericho going against Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship match. We had a 10 Diva tag team match. That lasted 3 minutes and 26 seconds. It means 10 women in a match of 3 minutes and 26 seconds. This also featured Randy Orton going against Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase in a triple threat match where Randy Orton won. So on to the main event of that. Like I said, Undertaker going against Shawn Michaels. This match wasn't as good as their first. This match lasted almost 24 minutes. But in the end, The Undertaker defeated Shawn Michaels. Very similar to what Shawn Michaels did to Ric Flair 2 WrestleManias before. Shawn Michaels had sat in the middle of the ring, and the crowd, of course, showed their appreciation for him. And you see him crying, that he's going to miss it. And he held up his end of the bargain until, of course, Blood Money, 2 years ago? So going on to WrestleMania 27. This WrestleMania featured a lot more celebrities. This featured Pee Wee Herman, Carrie Hilson, who sang America the Beautiful, Snoop Dogg, and Snooki from the Jersey Shore, who was featured in the match. This WrestleMania was hosted by The Rock. Now, around this time and the next couple of WrestleManias, I was not the biggest fan of The Rock. And it was because, I was a bit bitter of the fact that he left for Hollywood. I did like his movies, but when he came back, he was not really the same as he was when he was just The Rock. He was Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And you'll see if you go back between this WrestleMania and a lot of things he did for the next 2 WrestleManias, when he would cut promos, he would do a lot of smiling and everything. At one point, he was cutting promos and it was like dramatic music was added and everything. It just really wasn't the same, So for this WrestleMania, we had, The Rock comes out and he starts cutting a promo on John Cena. He didn't like John Cena, and so he was talking about, The Miz and John Cena, but it was mainly John Cena more. We had Randy Orton going against CM Punk. Now this was the time where we had Nexus and CM Punk was the leader of Nexus. If you never heard Nexus, they are the faction that could have been so big, but of course was taken out by John Cena. And speaking of John Cena, who was actually in the main event of this match, where it was him going against The Miz for the WWE Championship. I'll get to that match a little bit later. With that match between Randy Orton and CM Punk, Randy Orton defeated CM Punk with a RKO out of nowhere. In between some of the matches, there was backstage promos that The Rock will cut. He said, I will, make a WrestleMania moment with the next person who came around the corner, and it was Mae Young. Mae Young, of course, ended up slapping The Rock's ass, and he was like, bad Mae, frisky Mae, no Mae. And then, of course, he came face to face with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He also had a segment with Mean Gene Okerlund, where he came face to face with John Cena's number one fan, who ended up being Pee Wee Herman. There was a match of Michael Cole going against Jerry Lawler. Now, during this period of time, Michael Cole got full of himself, and he locked himself off in this glass cubicle as if he was in a bubble. And him and Jerry Lawler will go against each other to the point that they ended up having a match. Michael Cole was being trained by Jack Swagger, and Stone Cold Steve Austin was the special guest referee. Jerry Lawler had a lot of fun with it. He almost pinned Michael Cole, but then lifted up his head. Michael Cole would get into Stone Cold Steve Austin's face. Stone Cold Steve Austin will push him, and then Jerry the King Lawler would make him tap out, of course. Stone Cold Steve Austin took a little bit longer to officially call for the bell. So that was that. Jerry the King Lawler won. Now, this was also the time where we had the anonymous Raw general manager, who was basically a laptop, and you'll hear this doo-doo, doo-doo type of sound. I really didn't do the sound right. But basically, the Raw general manager would have a laptop. It would be a laptop on a podium, and the anonymous Raw general manager will send messages. And normally it's Michael Cole or Jerry the King Lawler who go over to the laptop, and they'll always say, "May I have your attention, please?" So for this one, it went off not Jerry the King Lawler. Actually, Booker T and Jim Ross who were commentating. And I believe it was Booker T who came over to read the anonymous email. And what they did was the Raw general manager decided to reverse the decision because of the interference of Steve Austin, and Michael Cole actually won the match. So a lot of people always make the joke how Michael Cole never lost at WrestleMania because he only had the one match. And this was actually Jerry the King Lawler's first WrestleMania. If you've been following the WrestleManias, you really didn't hear me mention any of his matches, which was really surprising. I would think he would have had at least one Mania feud. Now, this also featured the WrestleMania of Undertaker going against Triple H. And this was one of my second favorite entrants by The Undertaker. The original you will not find on the WWE Network because they changed the music. And I believe it was around this time that Johnny Cash had passed away. I don't know if he passed away before this entrance or after this entrance. But The Undertaker entered the match with Johnny Cash's song, Ain't No Grave Can Hold This Body Down. And the way that the setup for the ramp was slanting up. So when the wrestler enters, they have to walk up a ramp. And so the way that the music was going and the fact of saying Ain't No Grave Can Hold My Body Down, it looked like The Undertaker was walking out of the ground to the song. and it just matched the look. You know, he had the long black trench coat, of course. He was walking slow, but he was kind of walking to the beat of the song. It was so badass. You can find it on YouTube. If you try to watch it on WWE Network, you'll see it with The Undertaker's music, which really doesn't do the entrance justice. I mean, it's still good with The Undertaker's music, but it's so much better with that Johnny Cash song. Now, this WrestleMania, was this the one? No, he still had his hair for this WrestleMania. But The Undertaker, of course, defeated Triple H by submission with the Hell's Gate. And with this match, I don't think Triple H tapped. I think Triple H kind of passed out. So the thing was, The Undertaker couldn't walk out in his own power. This was the start of Undertaker being injured and not really putting on the 5-star matches we normally see him put on, especially after seeing him going against Shawn Michaels. So Undertaker actually needed to be carted off from the arena, whereas though Triple H was able to walk out on his own power. After that, we had a 6-person mixed tag team match. John Morrison, Snooki, and Trish Stratus going against Dolph Ziggler and Lay Cool, which was Layla and Michelle Cool. This also had Vicky Guerrero with them because Vicky Guerrero had a storyline romance with Dolph Ziggler. As you see, this was pretty much the only women's match on the roster, and it was a mixed tag team match. And main event was The Miz going against John Cena for the WWE Championship. This featured, I forgot what entrance John Cena had on this one. But this match resulted in a double countout, which, The Rock comes out, and then you hear the alert for the Raw general manager. Rock goes over and say, "May I have your attention, please? I received word from the anonymous Raw general manager." And he starts to read it, and he stops at the word, "I think." And he pauses, he looks around, and he says, "It doesn't matter what you think." And he kind of knocks the laptop over. He restarts the match. The Miz and John Cena gets back into the ring. And then John Cena goes and does gives John Cena a rock bottom, I believe it was. And then The Miz pins John Cena to retain the title. So, of course, the Monday Night Raw after Mania, John Cena and The Rock comes face to face after all this. And The Rock challenges John Cena to a match. And no, John Cena challenges The Rock to a match. And The Rock says, "Sure, I will challenge you to a match at next year's WrestleMania." And this main event, I would like to say, is one of the most overhyped main events, because this was a whole year of them hyping up John Cena versus The Rock once in a lifetime. And that was the name of this WrestleMania, WrestleMania 28. Once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime. John Cena versus The Rock. Once in a lifetime. You don't want to miss this because this is once in a lifetime. Did you know that John Cena and The Rock are going against each other? Don't miss it. It's once in a lifetime. So for this WrestleMania, they went all out on the celebrities. We had 2 musical performances, one done before John Cena comes out, the other done before The Rock comes out. It was annoying the hell out of me, first off. We had Diddy, who came out to introduce them. It was Machine Gun Kelly and Skylar Grey, who did a song before John Cena came out. And then Flo Rida did a song before The Rock comes out. Now we had Marina Menounos, who was featured at this WrestleMania as well. She was in a tag team match with Kelly Kelly, and they were going against Beth Phoenix and Eve Torres. This really wasn't the best match that she was in. This really wasn't the best of matches, because she really didn't sell as well. There was a part of the match where she had like her legs attacked or something like that. I forgot exactly what move they did to her, where she should have been selling the fact that her legs were attacked, but instead she started to hold onto her stomach and roll over. I mean, kudos to her. I know I can't say much because I've never been into a wrestling ring before, but I can criticize the way she sells. I think I can do that. For this WrestleMania, we had one of the shortest World Heavyweight Championships. This was Sheamus going against Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan was the champion. He had AJ Lee with him. This storyline was that she was his girlfriend. She would kiss him. She kissed him before this match. He turns around. Sheamus does the bro kick and then pinned Daniel Bryan 1, 2, 3. And that was it. This match also featured a Raw versus SmackDown as well. We had Team Johnny versus Team Teddy. And it was to determine which general manager would be the actual general manager for both Raw and SmackDown as well. Which Team Johnny had won. We had CM Punk going against Chris Jericho, and this was actually after the Summer of Punk. So CM Punk was very popular around this time. He had, I think it was this wasn't the year of his entrance being done live. But he was going against Chris Jericho, and this was for the WWE Championship. There was a stipulation added that CM Punk would lose his title if he was disqualified. But CM Punk won this match anyway. This WrestleMania ended with The Rock going against John Cena, of course. But before we get to that, we had The Undertaker going against Triple H in a Hell in a Cell match where Shawn Michaels was a special guest referee. So after WrestleMania 27, The Undertaker was starting to obsess the fact that Triple H had, kind of had a one-up on him, even though The Undertaker won. Triple H felt as though he won because he was able to walk off on his own power, whereas though The Undertaker had to get carted out. And there was little vignettes, and there was vignettes as well for WrestleMania 27. Was it with this one? Actually, I think it was all vignettes for this WrestleMania, where there was The Undertaker was in like this wooden house in the middle of nowhere, and it was raining, and you see The Undertaker start to cut his hair. So what happened was, I think The Undertaker wanted a rematch, and I don't think Triple H granted it. And I think Undertaker, of course, started to do the mind games. So at this WrestleMania, The Undertaker had his hood on, and then when he got into the ring, he took off the hood, and you see that he cut his hair off. And it's an amazing moment because the crowd reacted. Everyone gasped, and everyone was like, oh, or like, what? Because The Undertaker always had hair, except for when he was doing, the American Badass gimmick. So the fact that we see the actual Phenom Undertaker with a very low cut, he cut it into this weird low cut mohawk, but it was still surprising that The Undertaker pretty much had no hair. This was a good match as well. Of course, not as good as WrestleMania 25, but it was still a good match. It kind of had the crowd into it. This was a really good crowd, first of all. The crowd was into this match as well. This took place in Miami. So the crowd was really into this match. The crowd was also into The Rock versus John Cena as well. And I feel like everyone said how good this match was compared to their other match. And I feel like that was because of the crowd. The crowd was so into it. They were cheering hard for The Rock. Of course, John Cena had that polarizing chant, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. So I felt, this was a pretty good WrestleMania, I have to say. So going on to WrestleMania 29. This WrestleMania had actually featured Diddy, who I think because this took place in New York, he did I forgot how long his performance lasts, but it was pretty long. And this also featured Living Color too, who did CM Punk's entrance theme music. And kudos to them. The song Cult of Personality actually came out in the 80s and it became popular again because of CM Punk. And when I saw them perform, I didn't realize they were black this whole time. So seeing them perform was kind of like a really cool moment. But this WrestleMania actually featured The Shield for the first time. Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins going against Big Show, Randy Orton, and Sheamus. 6-man tag team match. You see Randy Orton give Seth Rollins an RKO out of nowhere when Seth Rollins jumps off the top rope to attack Randy Orton. This also featured Mark Henry versus Ryback. This was the debut of Fandango, and he was going against Chris Jericho. Fandango actually had a really cool entrance for this to be his first match. He had a lot of women who were dancing and dancing ballroom. I mean, like the salsa, whatever. And then he comes out with his non-really ballroom dancing self. And he actually defeated Chris Jericho. Now, the interesting thing is the Raw after Mania with this was when his popularity skyrocketed when the Internationals took his theme music and added a little dance to it. And then we'll sing the beat of his song along with it as well. Now, with this also featured Alberto Del Rio going against Jack Swagger for the World Heavyweight Championship. This also was the time where Dolph Ziggler had the biggest moment of his career, and the most popular he's been in his whole career as well. This time, Dolph Ziggler had the Money in the Bank Championship and the Raw after Mania. With this one, people were chanting for him to come out so he can cash in on Alberto Del Rio, which he did on Raw, and the crowd went crazy, and that was about as popular he was, and that was his peak, and then everything went crashing down shortly after that. This featured The Undertaker going against CM Punk, who had Paul Heyman in his corner. I wasn't really the biggest fan of CM Punk along this time. He went from the summer of Punk and being very popular. They turned him heel, and this was after Paul Heyman died, and they kind of used his death for the storyline. There were people who were saying that, I read that his family was okay with it, like they checked with the family first, and that this was something that Paul Bearer would have been cool with. I don't know if I said Paul Heyman or Paul Bearer. This was after Paul Bearer's death, and they used Paul Bearer's death in the storyline where CM Punk was kind of like making jokes. Paul Heyman dressed up as Paul Bearer at one point. CM Punk opened up one of the urns and dumped the contents of it on the Undertaker, and so yeah, I wasn't really the biggest fan of CM Punk around this time. I like CM Punk, but just with this, what they did with him, wasn't really big of a fan of. This also featured Triple H with Shawn Michaels going against Brock Lesnar and with Paul Heyman in a no-holds-bar match. If Triple H were to lose, he'll be forced to retire. Triple H actually got Brock Lesnar to tap, which was surprising to me, looking back at it. Not as surprising at that time because Brock Lesnar wasn't like having the squash matches that he would have WrestleManias after that. And then finally, the main event for this WrestleMania was John Cena going against The Rock for what you thought was once in a lifetime, but psych, nah, we lying, 2 times in a row. They actually tried to go for a 3rd time, but then they realized, you know what, maybe we should stop. People didn't really like this main event as much. Now, this was all for the title. People didn't like this event that much because it wasn't as good as the first one. I wasn't really a fan of this because The Rock would cut promos and he would add dramatic music to it. And people felt as though this match was pretty much the same as the one before it. The crowd wasn't into this match at all. So, now on to WrestleMania 30, which was the WrestleMania I was at, which was very fun. So this WrestleMania featured, of course, the biggest story is Daniel Bryan, The Undertaker as well, the Vicky Guerrero Invitational match. We had John Cena going against Bray Wyatt. We had the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I think this was the first one, if I'm not mistaken. But, the whole story with this was Daniel Bryan and his path to winning the championship. I wasn't the biggest Daniel Bryan fan coming into this WrestleMania, but just watching him live and feeling the audience, I was doing the yes chant at the end. This was, like I always say, if you've never been to WrestleMania, go to WrestleMania. WrestleMania is so fun because those internationals are so crazy, but they're so fun. Doing the chants, like, it'll be one section that'll do a chant and then everyone will kind of join in. So if you've never been there, you should go. This also featured John Cena going against Bray Wyatt. And I think this was, the Wyatt's entrance was done live. I think it's Mark Crozer and the refs who did the Wyatt's family entrance live. Of course, Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family was very popular, had very, very promising, and then John Cena just comes and just destroys it all. We also had, like I said, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, where Cesaro won by eliminating the Big Show, and he actually put him on his back and kind of flipped him over the top rope. I remember screaming, "Oh my God," and jumping up when I saw that happen. We had the Shield going against Kane and the New Age Outlaws. You know, of course, nostalgia for that one. I wasn't on the side where the Shield was leaving out, but come to think of it, I think I saw Sasha Banks, Charlotte, and I forgot the other person, but I think I saw them walking past by me. And I wasn't really watching NXT at this time, so I didn't really recognize them. But really looking back, because I remember seeing them and I was like, oh, they must be girlfriends of the wrestlers or something. Because they was like dressed they was dressed very nice and everything. Of course, they looked not really out of place, but, you know, everybody's wearing jeans and, you know, wrestling t-shirt and everything. And they're wearing like heels and dresses and everything. So I know I really shouldn't have thought that way, but I didn't watch NXT. I didn't know who they were. We had Brock Lesnar going against The Undertaker, and seeing The Undertaker, you know, entrance live, and it was very, very special. Now I sat closer to the ramp. If you're facing the entrance, I was on the right hand side on the floor. Pretty good seats. Pretty good shot of The Undertaker's entrance. I have that video and photo somewhere among all my stuff. But seeing The Undertaker and watching him live, I felt that something was off about his match. And come to find out, he had a concussion during the match. But the fact that Brock Lesnar defeated him and defeated the streak, I was so upset. But going into the main event, we had Daniel Bryan going against Batista and Randy Orton in a triple threat match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And this was around the time that they decided to combine the WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship. And they felt as though it was John Cena and Randy Orton who should fight for it. And I believe Randy Orton actually won that match because he has titles at this point. And you know, at the end of the night, you see everyone is cheering for Daniel Bryan. And at the end, Daniel Bryan won. He had confetti rained down on him, and it was an awesome time. I also went to the Raw after Mania for this WrestleMania as well. Got to see the Ultimate Warrior, his last time, public appearance as well. And I got to participate in all the crazy cheers that the internationals do. So that is WrestleMania 21 to 30. So in the next episode, I will go through 31 and 35, and I'll also give my predictions for this year's WrestleMania 36 as well. So that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Jaydee Talks. That's Jaydee Talks. And be sure to follow the podcast as well. Be on the lookout this WrestleMania weekend for a tweet. I'll be giving away a $25 WWE Shop gift card. I will give out the rules of how you can win on Twitter. Be sure to follow me or the podcast for more information. So until next time, guys, check out the next episode. Peace out. Peace.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Check us out at WrestleBread.com and subscribe to WrestleBread on YouTube for more breaking news and JD's opinions.